Hey, so what does a free-to-play account look like after 6 months? Now I know Enviosity already did this video, so this is going to be more so like a comparison between somebody that plays Genshin for most likely multiple hours a day to me, somebody who plays Genshin about 1 to 2 hours a day, which I feel like is much closer to what the average player of Genshin does, because a large portion of Genshin's player base is casual players that are not going to be playing the game for multiple hours a day. And also, I do spend my Primogems, so I do have 5-star characters. Starting with weapons, as you can see, I have absolutely no 5-star weapons. I only have 4-star weapons. A lot of them are from gacha because, like I said, I actually do summon on my account. For the most part, a lot of these are free-to-play weapons. As for 3 stars, I do have refined 5 of a lot of the 3-star weapons. I'm most likely not going to be using the 3-star weapons. They're just like there if I happen to need them. Generally, 3-star weapons are not really worth it, so it's really not that wise to keep them and actually use them unless you have to, like in this case with Kaya. I don't have many swords, 4-star swords, so he has to be using a 3-star sword unfortunately, but other than that, it's really just wise to use 4 stars. As for artifacts, now there's going to be like a discussion a little bit later in the video about artifacts, but for right now, showing my artifacts, I have a lot of plus 20 artifacts and I also have a lot of plus 0 artifacts. I keep pretty much every single artifact that is potentially good, which I don't know if that's wise for some people, but for me, I think that's smart, just because like if you look at this feather right here, like if it all goes into crit rate, then this is going to be an amazing feather. And this flower, if everything goes into crit damage, this is an amazing flower. Is it very likely that all of them are going to go into crit rate or crit damage? Not really, but it's not 0. So I'm going to be taking that chance, and I feel like you should as well, because you never know what's going to be a good artifact. Everything has potential, you just have to see it. Now, of course, I did focus all on my plus 20 artifacts that I already know are good, and I made sure to get to those to plus 20 before I even look at any of the ones that are plus 0. So a lot of these are like already done. I already know that they're very strong, so we're just using those. And then after I get to a point where I have enough artifact experience to actually level up the ones that are bad, then maybe we can see some of these with an upgrade. Character development stuff, a lot of these have a lot of the hero wits, especially because of the Ocean event. I did not use fragile resin, which we're going to be talking about in a little bit, but I did not use fragile resin on that event because I did not think that it was worth it. But I did use all of my resin that I accumulated daily on that event because it was still very worth it. It was about a 20% increase to use instead of just getting hero wits. So that was a really good event to use your resin on. And so I do have a little bit more stockpile than I usually would, but I do only build characters that I personally like. I have a lot of characters that are really just plus 0. They're below level 20 and they're just kind of there. Everything else here for the most part has just been passive farming. At one point near the beginning of the game, I did do like the mini boss route where you would just go around to that, killing like all of the Abyss mages, killing all of the Sisson mages, Minotaurs, Ruin Guards, whatever. I did do that for a little bit, but other than that, everything else here is just passive. As for the boss materials, a lot of this has just been accumulated from the beginning of the game, pretty much since when it was available. Except maybe Dvalin, because I did take my time a lot near the beginning of the game, because that's what I personally like doing. I did use a couple plumes, like claws. I have not used a single claw. Rings of Boreas I have used for Keqing, and then the Tusk of Monoceros and the Shard of Foul Legacy I have used for Childe and Zhongli. Everything else has just been passive, except for the Lightning Prisms from the Electro Hypostasis. I did farm that because, one, I do want to ascend Beto, and I did want to build Fischl and Lisa at some point in the future. As of right now, they're not going to get built, but sometime in the future I do want to build them. Like I said, everything else is just passive except for these Philosophies of Freedoms. I did farm all of the ones that I needed for Childe, so I wouldn't have to do it in the future. So I do have 92 of these. I did have 114 because that's the max amount that you need. But other than that, I have not farmed specifically for these in kind of a while. Crowns, I have used crowns because I plus 10'd all of Zhongli's talents. I used 3 crowns on Zhongli, 1 of them on Keqing, so we do have 5 from the beginning of the game as of right now. I use 1 on Keqing. Childe is going to get this last one, and then everything else is going to go into Childe as soon as I get them. As for food, I have not actually done any of the recipes. I just have not really felt like it. So a lot of these are just kind of like there. It's kind of whatever. These ones, prototypes, I will say I did get pretty lucky with prototypes. At one point, I was just getting like prototypes pretty often. So I did end up getting an extra sword prototype. Bow prototypes, I have not used a single one. I don't know how many you get for free, but I'm pretty sure I have gotten one. Claymore prototypes, I've only used one, and all of the other ones have just been gotten like that. Tome prototypes, I used one for a map of Mare. Oh, I know I used another one for the prototype Malice, which I believe is called a prototype Amber now, but I did use 2 of these. And then the pole arm prototype, I did get enough to be able to R5 my crescent pike, so I did get really lucky in that aspect. And I have enough left over to even +3 another one if I wanted to. But other than that, everything here, once again, is passive farming except for bamboo shoots, because I'm doing that specifically for a video. But otherwise, you really don't need bamboo shoots. Again, everything else is passive, especially these lotus heads. I just get these from the expedition that you do. I do the Matsutake with the lotus head, and I just get those together. I've been doing that one pretty much since it's been available to me. Everything else, passive farming, especially these gadgets or whatever. This one is also whatever. Now this one, I have the cake, haven't used it yet because I don't really feel like it, but lanterns, again, this one really doesn't matter, but I do have 113 of them, which wasn't really like planned, but 113 in Pokemon is actually the Pokedex number for Chansey, whose Japanese name is Lucky, so number 113 is Lucky, and I didn't really plan that out, but it just happened to work out that way, so I thought it was cool. Other than that, I have the 1 extra Animoculus that you get, the 1 extra Geoculus that you get, all of those are maxed out. Same thing with the Crimson Gates. My Crimson Gates are actually all maxed out. I have 79 out of 80. I do know where the last one is, and I'll show it to you. I have 79 out of 80. The 80th Crimson Gate is right there. That is number 80. I have not picked it up because I don't want to, but I do want to see how many Crimson Gates you can actually get. So this, unfortunately, is not level 12. It is probably going to stay level 11 for a very long time, if not forever. I do think, I remember reading that somebody said that like at level 12 the Frostbearing tree actually disappears, and if that's the case, I'm never going to level it up to level 12 because I do like it here, I do like seeing it here, I don't want it to disappear. So I'm never going to level up that to level 12, and I just want to see how many Crimson Gates you can actually get. So there's that one. Again, I'm just leaving that one just in case something actually happens if you collect all 80 out of 80. I don't want something like weird to happen, you know? So that one's going to stay there, probably forever. I never actually did Dragon Spine for the longest time, so I don't have as many Crimson Gates as you could possibly have right now. I did wait for a very long time until Dragon Spine. Obviously, we had that event with Albedo to go through Dragon Spine, and I did enough of Dragon Spine to be able to finish that event and get all the rewards, but since then, I have not done Dragon Spine. I just finished Dragon Spine, actually started and finished exploring Dragon Spine about 3 weeks ago. So I put it off for a very long time because I didn't want to rush through Dragon Spine because that's not really my play style. I really like to take my time when I play games, and Dragon Spine was no exception. Other than that, do have the 2 bear traps that you get from the Razor Paralog. Haven't used those because I don't want to. Star Glitter and Star Dust. Intertwined Fates and Acquaint Fates. Now, I have used my Primogems. Obviously, I have 13,000 right now. I have used enough for 4 pities, and I have enough for a 5th pity. And then comes Acquaint Fates. My Acquaint Fates, I have not used any since the very beginning of the game. I did use 10. So here, this is the permanent wish. I did use 10 at the very start of the game because I needed the Stardust to be able to buy the 5 Acquaint Fates from the shop that refreshes every single month. And I did end up getting a Singchio, so that was really cool. The beginner banner, for some reason, does not show up here, but I did get a Keqing from the beginner banner at the very start of the game. I was lucky enough to get a 5-star character. Other than that is all of my other pities, and I have not summoned on the weapon banner because I personally do not believe that it is wise to summon on the weapon banner, especially for a free-to-play player, because weapons are the things that are going to get power crept in this game, so it's not really wise to summon on that when you don't have as many resources, because in a month or 2 that weapon is going to get power crept and it's just going to feel really bad to have that weapon when you could have a much better weapon. So theoretically, you should never summon on the weapon banner because it's always going to get better, but you never know when it's going to be the good weapon, you know what I mean? So I am most likely not going to be summoning on the weapon banner because, like I said, that is going to get power crept. In my opinion, you should always summon on the character banner because you are attached to a character. So if that character gets power crept, you're still going to like that character. You're still going to enjoy using that character. But if the weapon banner gets power crept, which already is, we already know that that's happening, you're not attached to the weapon, so when it gets power crept that just feels really bad, but you are attached to the character, so it doesn't matter if it gets power crept. Now fragile resin. Now if there's anything to take away from this video, it's about fragile resin. Now fragile resin is generally thought of to be as this sacred item that you should never use because it's incredibly rare, it's one of the best items in the game, it's just so good that you want to save it for when you actually want it. And while that is true, it is a very rare resource and it is very strong, but because it's very strong, you do want to use it. And this is something that Enviosity said that he regrets using his fragile resin, and I disagree with that 100%. If there's anything, any statement that I disagree with in Genshin, it is that 100%. That is just not correct, because the progress that you can get and the progress that he has, the progress that I have, is because of those fragile resin. You use this fragile resin on artifacts. 100% you use that on artifacts. I know what he said. He said that he wanted to use it on other resources or whatever. That's just wrong. I'm sorry. I don't want to be mean, but that is just straight up wrong. You do want to use your fragile resin on artifacts. Now, at some point, you will plateau. That's pretty much where I am right now. The artifacts that I have are pretty much as good as they're going to get for a very long time. But you need to use those fragile resin to hit that point, because every other resource in the game, like hero wits, like Mora, like ascension materials, all of these things, you get passively just by playing the game, but the only way to get artifacts is to actively farm them. So if you're using your resin on artifacts, you're going to be progressing your account much faster than somebody who is leveling up their characters or doing it specifically for ascension stats. Because like I said, that is a passive thing. You're always going to accumulate those, but with artifacts, the only way to get them is to farm them. And that's where fragile resin comes in. Fragile resin, people say that like you shouldn't use them because they're so good. What fragile resin is just borrowing resin from the future to use right now. So it doesn't matter how you use that resin in relation to other resin, because it is just resin. Let's say this week I wanted to farm Mora, and the next week I wanted to farm character ascension materials. If I instead wanted to farm this week with character ascension materials and then next week be Mora, it's the exact same thing. So it's the exact same thing with fragile resin as well. If I choose to use these fragile resin, which is just extra resin that I would have in the future, and I choose to use that now, it's the same thing as when in the future I use the resin that I would have used right now on character ascensions in the future, if that makes any sense. So what you want to do is use all that resin early on artifacts, because artifacts are the most important thing to level up your character. Yes, weapons are very important. Yes, talent levels are very important. But without artifacts, your character is nothing. You can still be a really strong character with really good artifacts, but a level 1 weapon and level 1 talents. But you cannot be a good character with level 10 talents, a good weapon, and then no artifacts, if that makes any sense. Now, they do all three work together to make a strong character, but I will say that artifacts are a little bit more important. So I wholeheartedly disagree with the idea that you should not use fragile resins on your artifacts. That is the best thing to use them on, and that is what you should use them on, because that is where you're going to get the most amount of progression with your account. Now, like I said, you do plateau at a certain point, and that's when you do want to stop using your fragile resin. At a certain point, when you're okay with the level of your artifacts and you feel like they're pretty good, then you can stop using your fragile resin, and that's what I have done so far. I used a very large majority of my fragile resin, and now I have 14. And I'm going to save those for a while until whenever we get something that it's actually worthwhile to use the resin. Now, we did recently just get the Oceanid event, which you could get unlimited resources by using your fragile resin, and that was a good place to use your resin. Not specifically the Oceanid event, I don't think it was worth it to use resin on that event, but in the future we might get something for like Mora, which would be worth it to use your fragile resin, because Mora is just a much more universal resource. But moving on to characters, a little bit like of a timeline of my account. I did get Keqing at the very beginning of the game on the standard banner. I was lucky enough to get her, but then it didn't really end up mattering, because when I summoned her Childe, when he first came around, I ended up getting pity broken by Keqing, so she would be C1, but I don't have it activated right now because this is really for an Electro build. My Keqing is a physical build, and I do make guides for Spiral Abyss, and having a C1 Keqing kind of like ruins the validity of it a little bit, so she's probably going to stay C0 for a very long time. After I failed getting Childe, I used my guaranteed pity on Zhongli. Albedo's banner came around after him. I summoned a little bit for a Bennett, but that didn't end up working out, so that was really cool. And then after that was Ganyu. I skipped Ganyu. Oh, also, by the way, I did not summon on Venti or Klee. I did not summon either of those banners. So after Ganyu, we got Xiao, skipped that banner as well. Then we got a Keqing rerun, skipped that banner as well. Hu Tao, I did try to go for Hu Tao, and I ended up getting pity broken by Jean. And then Childe Reman came around and I used my guaranteed pity on him. Those are the characters that I wanted. I knew that I really wanted Childe. I knew that I really wanted Zhongli, so I used my guaranteed pities on those characters. And that's kind of what I believe that you should do as well. Because going for the meta character, they're always going to get power crept in the future, but like I said, you are attached to the character, so even if that character gets power crept, you still like using that character, so you're never going to see it as a bad purchase, quote unquote. So even though Childe may not be like the best 5-star, I do personally like him. He's extremely fun, one of my favorite 5-stars like ever to play as. And also I will be saving the remainder of my Primogems for Baizhu. Baizhu is the next character that I am saving for. I do have enough to get another pity, and like I said, the acquaintance I do have, and that's also why my characters all have like an exclamation point by their name. It's either that they have a constellation that I have not activated, or it's because they have the acquaintance that you can pick up after ascending them. I just haven't picked them up because, like I said, I'm not using them anyway, so it doesn't matter where they are. I'm not one that's bothered by the exclamation point in the corner. I will be summoning for Yanfei when she does come out because I do like her a lot. So I will be summoning a hobo for her, so hopefully I don't get pity broken by a 5-star, so I can actually save for Baizhu, but that is the next character that I'm summoning for. Like I said, with crowns and boss materials, I did use one on Keqing, I did use 3 of them on Zhongli, and I will be using 1 of them on Childe. Other than that, I've been leveling up characters that I actually want, so as you can see, like right here at the bottom, a lot of these characters are really low level. They're not even close to being done because I just don't care. I am building friendship for them because that's just something that I want to do. But there are going to be characters that you just cannot build because you don't have the resources, especially as a free-to-play player. Battle Pass, I have never purchased the Battle Pass because I don't want to. It is kind of worth the money, but I just don't want to spend money on this game. If you are going to spend money on this game, you should be spending them on things that are guaranteed. Things like the Battle Pass, things like the Blessing of the Moon, the Welkin Pass or whatever it's called. You should be spending money on those if you do want to spend money, and not on the Genesis crystals to summon on the character banner or the weapon banner, because that's RNG and you're just going to go down a rabbit hole and that's not very fun. But Battle Pass and Welkin are guaranteed resources that you are going to keep no matter what, as long as you sign in, and those are much worthwhile purchases. But other than that, that's pretty much a rundown of my account, what you can kind of expect after 6 months of playing as a free-to-play player. Like I said, I do play like 1 to 2 hours every single day, and that's pretty much it. I just sign in, use my resin, do the daily artifact run that you should be doing, by the way, because it's very good. If you want me to make a video on that, I can, but you should be doing that. Other than that, I don't really play for very long, and I just sign out very fast because there's not really much to do in Genshin. So if you enjoyed the video, hope you're having a fantastic day. Like and subscribe if you want. I would really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.